Welcome into the locker room. Football did us a massive favour at the weekend and gave us so much to talk about. There were goals that should have been allowed, goals that we'd never expected to see scored. The leaders all dropped points in France, Spain and Italy, and unbeaten runs ended too. Coming up on the show, we've got everything but the goal. Real Madrid's problems rolling on. We'll be celebrating goalkeepers as Benevento finally got their first win. PSG were beaten for the first time this season. Just a blip or something bigger? These are questions we will be answering this evening. So much to discuss, though, so let's get straight to it. Real Madrid dropping more points on a weekend where they could have gained some ground on Barcelona. They failed to score again. Sergio Ramos got sent off again, and now there's some key suspensions for the next game against Sevilla. So do we really believe Zinedine Zidane when he says he's not concerned?
He actually says he's happy as well in the interview that we saw.
10 million a year. Of course he's happy.
But his team isn't happy. They're certainly not creating anywhere near the chances. You know, Bobo, you always say, as long as they're creating chances, as long as they're there to miss, they're okay. Yeah. But this team, for me, isn't being as creative as they used to be at all.
Yeah, I think the stats actually prove it, because if you look at Ronaldo and Benz, they've scored 2 out of 10. Isco scored more. Casemiro, defensive midfielder, scored more. We've picked on Suarez to say Suarez is struggling. He scored 6. He scored more than both of them combined. So there's something wrong with them individually, and there's something wrong with the way they play together, because normally they know where each other are. They can link up well. They're just not doing it.
I have the answer.
Oh, God.
Listen.
I have the answer of Real Madrid. 2 names, Morata, Almas Rodriguez.
Can it turn black tail?
Last year, they played so many games like they're playing now. The only thing that is done would put those 2 in, take another 2 out, and they would score. That's why they both scored 31 goals and 20 assists. Assists mean goals. So that's another 20 goals. That's 51 goals. That's why. Because you think that last year they won all the games like 2-3-0. No, they had problems.
Starting 11 in his last game was a starting 11 that beat Juventus, by the way,
in the Champions League,
without a doubt.
Indomitable. So what is it, Thomas? Is it the formation that they're playing? Is it the players? Are they tired?
You could talk about Benz being static, and that doesn't open up lanes for Isco and Ronaldo to work in. You could talk about Kroos and Casemiro not having that true grit that they had last year. You could talk about their back force pull, but you know what it comes down to? I think it's the mentality of this team, and that goes way beyond anything that is Zidane. And you're right, Rocky. He says, I was very happy with the game we played. He talks about unlucky. He talks about patience. Isco talks about we're unlucky. Casemiro talks, we're missing some goals. We don't have luck. You know what?
You create your own luck. That's what he's telling the media. How is he managing them in this difficult time?
To me, I think he's now become the problem, Zidane, because he can only manage one way. He's got rid of the players off the bench, so they, as Boba says, they can't come on and put the pressure on. So you know Alvaro Morata coming on and putting pressure on. No pressure there. The manager has to produce the pressure. He's just a nice guy who manages one way. He cannot change the way he manages.
I agree with you guys 100%. But in big teams, you need a big bench, because they can't play 60, 70 games a year. There's going to be games that they're tired. That's why if you have a big bench and you put fresh players in, and these players are phenomenal players.
Whose fault is that? Is it Zidane's fault for selling and not buying?
It's the club's fault.
Well, he's not even using his full bench every week. It's like he doesn't have faith in that bench himself. He's not using every substitution that he has
interesting, too, when we, for a while, are talking about Bale, we're not so sure. But Bale's presence, and Bale, by the way, is the fastest player in the world. I know it sounds crazy. He can stretch defenses.
He opens them up. I agree.
Exactly, Boba. They've become too predictable. But you know what? You got to do a critical analysis after every game with your team, with the door closed. And you have to be honest with your players. And you know what, Ronaldo, if you don't work, it's not good enough. And you know, the back four, we got to organize better. And if you don't get a reaction, you got to take it a step further. And you got to hurt their pride. You got to lay into these guys. And if not, then you got to go public and say it's not good enough.
Sergio Ramos, who's such a great leader to the team usually, but gets his 19th red card in La Liga this weekend. What do you do there?
You know how he is. What you want to change? He's 30 years old. You want to change him now?
That lane.
That's how he is.
That's
right.
He's always lived there.
I mean, Puyol, you've seen Puyol over the years. He was tough, but he didn't get sent off every week.
It's just, you know, they can't all be, you know, in that light, though, Gary. Sergio Ramos is a world-class central defender, in my opinion. He's always been the leader of this team. He's led them by example. He's come up with great winners. You remember not so long ago we were singing his praises for always being there and dragging his team back.
Yeah.
They're going through a terrible time. Cristiano's not at the races. Benzema looks as if he's lost. Marcelo doesn't look as if he's half of the player. He is sparkled like he used to. And I'll tell you what, I'm still going to take them for the championship.
No,
yes, I am. I am. Remember I said that.
Okay, this is their worst start since 2008.
Yep.
They didn't win it that year, but in terms of goals, this is the same statistics with Fabio Capello's 06-07 team. They went on to win it.
Can I tell you one reason why they might win?
Campaign.
Why they might. They were saying in the news today that they're going to look to buy in the January window. Icardi was one of the names who came up. There was the other lad, Timo Werner from Bundesliga.
Sure.
If they buy one or two, maybe a centre-back in January, and they buy well, that could just turn their season around.
In my opinion,
Only
if I look at body language during the game, Benzema and Ronaldo, the frustration, looking at teammates, putting your head down, that goes beyond X's and O's, to be real honest with you. When we lost the game in Edmonton, which was an 8-hour flight, by the way, from LA, because our mentality wasn't right, we went back, our wives picked us up. No. In the bus, Rinus Michel said, to the snake pit. And we ran and ran and ran till everybody puked. And you know what? We never lost the game because we didn't have the right mentality. I don't know if this works in the modern era, but Zidane, maybe you want to try that.
Yeah,
or maybe take them bowling.
I don't think it's that part of it. When I've seen Real Madrid play this year, I haven't thought that they stink, that they are stinking this place up, that they're a wreck of a team. I don't say that. I thought they were damn unlucky not to get the full points at the weekend. Yeah. Now, all of our points right now have been valid all the way down, from the coach to the president to the... And the fans, even the fans have been behind Real Madrid. They're not turning on them. They're not turning. There's no whistling going on. There's no booing going on, because they know they're in a strange place right now. And I don't know if we've ever seen a team look so ponderous. There's question marks. I don't think there's any one thing that you can point at this Real Madrid side to say that's the problem. Because I'm looking at where Modric plays and Casemiro. For me, I'll take that a lot of the time. It's just not falling in. How many times did we come on this show all last year saying he's riding his luck? Yeah. Zidane was saying, I'm a lucky general. I am having that good fortune. It's not falling in for them now. It's going in.
Here's one piece of good luck.
Gary, I hate to hang everything on that, but sometimes, Thomas, I think they're just going through a really tough phase of not having good luck.
Here's one bit of good luck. Seeing Keylor Navas back in goals.
Magic.
Making good saves, keeping a clean sheet. All the time you've got a clean sheet, you think one of those players is going to come up.
Good saves.
They didn't on the day. By the way, you say they were lucky. I'm not so sure. That was a penalty, rather. Ramos tripping up Raul Garcia in the box.
Absolutely, that's right.
Thinking,
he should have been off before then.
So maybe they had a bit of luck.
Okay, Barcelona.
They'll be fine though. Real Madrid will be back.
At the end of the day, their problem is because they're not. The problem is they're scoring. They're not scoring goals.
Right.
Yeah.
So the thing is that I want to hammer that, because if Ronaldo, instead of scoring 2 goals, he would have had 10, 12 now.
Right.
They would have won more games.
Everything is
They don't play their games, because when you're winning 1-0, physically, you work less than when you're 0-0 until the 95th minute.
Sure.
When you're winning 1 or 2-0, you can relax a bit. Things come more easy. So I'm just saying that if they have a bench that can come on and score goals, because that's all they're missing, because they're not losing
January
games.
sales important?
Of course, 100%. But Icardi's not going to go with January.
Timo Werner, somebody.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the talk about Barcelona, because they dropped points for a second week, and for a second week they were also denied a perfectly good goal. But when we do talk about luck going your way, on the week that they dropped points, on a weekend that they dropped points, they actually gained more points on the second-place team, Valencia, because they lost their game. So just taking a look at the Barca players here going into this one. Do you think that they have a right to feel aggrieved, or will they be happy enough to just be sailing through and everybody else dropping points around
I didn't like their game Sunday.
You didn't? Why?
I didn't like. I think they were sloppy, too slow.
Yep.
And Sota were on fire. They pressed the whole game. They were alive. And you could see that straight away.
Right from the first minute.
Straight away. I agree with you, Ray. And they gave them a hard time. And even if Barcelona is a fantastic team, but you're not prepared mentally like the other team, physically, you don't press, you're going to have a hard time.
It was a super game of La Liga Santander football, this, and thankfully because of Celta. I didn't think Barcelona were as bad as what Bob was saying, but I think they were a few degrees off colour. But this Celta team, led by Iago Aspas, that we saw, was absolutely, like Bobo says, just on fire. Every one of them came to play, and it was good football. You know, their coach, Carlos Unsue, knows this Barcelona team. He threw in some different curves, right from the first minute, right to the end, when it looked like Barcelona were going to win, they come back.
Did you not think they were a little bit unlucky, though? I mean, they've hit the post 2, maybe 3 times.
Yep.
That first goal, ter Stegen's made the save, and it's just spun away to Iago Aspas. The second goal we're going to see in a moment.
Perfectly
By
good
the way,
goal.
here's a perfectly good goal, disallowed.
A great goal.
Umtiti pulls a hamstring on the second goal.
Yep.
I just felt it was an unlucky day as well for
That's
Barcelona.
a miss for them, though, Umtiti out of this one, especially
Huge.
with how strong they've been.
Not a big miss, Kate. Not a big miss. That is monumental. Because there's no Jeremy Mathieu to come in now. It's Vermaelen, who's been pretty solid. But Umtiti is a different character altogether. He's playing as well as Mascherano did in his days, and even the great Carles Puyol.
Mascherano is still injured as well, and Valverde's talked about Busquets can play there, even Digne can play there. They got the kid Da Costa in the B team that's done very well, but you're right. Now Piqué all of a sudden has to play more games than Valverde initially wanted him to do because there's no depth there.
They say that's where he's looking to strengthen, to get a centre-back and another man in the middle.
And they really but I want to go to Barca real quick. We talk about the mentality again. Busquets after the game, and that was a great save, by the way. We have to be stronger. At home is our place. Intensity he uses. Too many errors. You know what? Accountability.
Who said this?
This is Busquets.
So I was right then.
You were right.
About himself. No.
Go on.
But I think there's a difference between Madrid right now and Barca. Luis Suarez, I have to fight for everything I have. I have to score. If not, I'm not happy.
So the Barcelona players are saying what the Real Madrid players should say.
Exactly. That's what I think, Rob.
Exactly.
That's
and in fact, when Ronaldo did come out and say, we've sold players who need to replace them, they shut him down. Ramos said, no, it's not true, but it is true. Right. They've sold great players and they haven't replaced them, and that's critical for them.
Let's touch on Inter, because they took top spot in the Serie A at the weekend, winning their game against Chievo 5-0, taking full advantage of Juventus beating Napoli on Friday. Now, before you all tell me who you think will win it, do you think, with what you've seen now, that Inter could go on to win the Scudetto this year? Because now it's not just grinding out the results, as we saw in this game. This was a high-scoring game for them too.
Tom, you're thinking that this team's really starting to look good now?
Now they're good. Now they're convinced. At the beginning of the year, I said, he's best coach we have in Italy. He's a fantastic coach. And mentally, they weren't prepared to say, let's try and win the Scudetto.
Right.
After, 15 games, they're there. Mentally, they're strong because this coach makes them train, speaks to them, gives them a good mentality. They've won a lot of games. I don't know if they're going to win the Scudetto, but they're going to be there until the last game of the season, the 38th game.
I think it's still too early. They've played 50 matches. They haven't played in Europe. They haven't played really 3 or 4 real tough matches. Saying that, though, Icardi, the best start since Luca Toni in 205, 206, with the goals that he has scored as well.
16 goals this season.
Thank you, Kay. But if Icardi gets injured, there's not a quality guy there as well. Defensive depth, I'm not so sure either. So I'm still on the fence with this team.
But look at all the big teams across Europe. Does everyone have a backup striker that can put all those goals away?
I tell you who does is probably Juventus with a Mandzukic. And again, with their win, you look at them and think they're the team that Inter have to beat. If they can beat them next weekend, away at Juve, you've got to start thinking, hang on a second, this Inter team have a chance. I can't see it, though. Okay?
Yeah, huge game on beIN Sports next week.
The Derby d'Italia. Okay, let's
on.
Talk about the other Milan side, because Gattuso's run as manager of Milan did not get off to the start that he may have hoped for.
Go on.
Who would have foreseen a 95th minute equaliser from the Benevento goalkeeper to give them their first ever point in the Serie A? We didn't foresee that one.
And against a goalkeeper like him, against Donnarumma as well.
After the game, he actually gave a little speech out and said he's sorry that happened.
It's a staggering. This is one of the great moments of all of our year's football. The celebrations. This place in Benevento was packed to the gills. You couldn't shoehorn one more fan in. In the last breath, when Jesus's got the win. He's got it. It's over. He's just got to defend. Throw the goalkeeper in. Gets his head on it, and the witch flies in. Little glancing header. Unbelievable.
His coach had told him not to go up, but he said, I'm just stubborn like my coach, and I decided to go up anyway.
Yeah.
No one listens to the coach.
Yeah, not in a moment like that.
No one used to listen to Ray when he was coaching.
That's right, they just went out and played. Go on, boys.
But here's something amazing, is that Milan have spent $250 million, and they're 10 or 11 points worse off than they were last season.
Yeah.
How does that happen? I mean, that really...
It's football,
that's
Gary.
going to be one of
That's
those classic things that when you do your license, they're going to say, here's the example of how to mess up a team.
But look at that. Look at that guy.
Did the McLeod Benevento.
Hey, the witching way.
The witches. When we come back, we'll discuss PSG's first loss and Manchester United looking good ahead of next weekend's Manchester derby. What I love time, and the ball is 5 times as big as the keeper here, so there should be no surprises that this happens.
You saved it.
Here we go, okay, Murray.
Oh, here's this with you and these.
Laugh when children get hit, hey, Murray. Come on, you can't do that.
I'm terrible. This is the best paper plane we've seen for a while. You know, the fans often trying to get them onto the pitch, but this one, whack, right in the lady's face. And here, you put this one up on Instagram, Chris.
I thought it was Bobo, actually. Sorry, Bobo.
Oh, you think I'm that slow? What's wrong?
I was surprised.
Does all the work.
Oh, my
God.
My friend sent it to me yesterday.
It's in England as well, sadly.
Oh, there you go.
Where do you think it's going to be? Let's go here.
You know, get all the hype there and then you can't finish. And then look at this, kids. I'm a fire starter, a twisted fire starter. Watch this one. Gets the whole crowd fired up. Lovely stuff there.
That's awesome.
Okay.
That's amazing.
Last week, Unai Emery laughed off suggestions that PSG were already going to win the league. He said it was silly to say that there were no rivals in France, and he mentioned the form that Marseille and Lyon were in. He didn't mention the newly promoted Strasbourg, the team that became the first side to beat PSG this season in all competitions. Cavani didn't start this one. Does this loss tell us anything about PSG?
I think that PSG have to lose one game every 3.5 months. So
kick
then
them up the
everyone, everyone brings them back to earth. It's the only way they're going to win the Champions League this year.
Listen,
every week
Bayern.
before the Champions League, they get smashed, like that happened this week.
They look beyond Strasbourg. They look at Bayern Munich, a big game. He made 5 changes.
Right.
The one thing that now comes to mind is, you know what, how important Cavani is. Because Mbappe is a great player. He's got great speed. He wants depth, though. Yeah. Cavani brings other players, Neymar, into the game as well. He can do both. I think Emery looked at that and said, Mbappe, you're going to still play out wide because Cavani going forward is
It's amazing that weekend, though. I mean, all the little teams winning. Strasbourg beating PSG, Getafe beating Valencia, Benevento, of course, and even Man United won.
Manchester United.
Where's Newcastle again in the league?
Manchester United beat Arsenal at the weekend, but they lost Paul Pogba to a red card in the process. There were 3 goals in this game from Manchester United for the game before that, so it's not such negative football right now, is it, Gary Bailey?
It's not, but I've got to say Arsenal were very poor defensively for the first 10 minutes, and United punished them with two sort of breakaway goals there. But losing
breakaway goals.
Well, not breakaway, taking advantage of errors in the
Very
defence.
good ones.
And they punished them there. But the man of the match for me, by a million miles, David De Gea. 14 saves, I think, is a Premiership record. But if your goalkeeper's your man of the match, then you've still got to ask the question, how good are you? And how good you're going to be against Man City next week.
Okay, so let's talk about Manchester City, because they left it late against West Ham. It was actually a comeback win. It was their 13th successive game of the weekend. But there's been talk in England that other teams are starting to see their weak spots, maybe defending set pieces when teams sit deep against them and when teams hit them on the counter. Is that what Jose Mourinho will be doing against them next week?
Could you be seeing Eber at set pieces every chance? I don't think they have many weaknesses, Manchester City, but they are struggling to win games in the last couple of games. I think it's 20 matches they're undefeated. So you've got to give them credit and say they are the form team. But at Old Trafford, against Man United, I know we haven't got Pogba, but with Ibra possibly on the bench or even starting, who knows, it's going to really test City. If they win this, I think then everyone's going to go, they're a great side. But if not, it opens it up a little bit. It brings everybody back into it.
Don't even bother turning up at work if they don't win this one, Gary Bader. So I'll have you here in the locker room. Okay, the top two Liga MX clubs will face in the final as Monterrey and Tigres will contest the first ever Clásico Regio final. Who have you got in this one, Thomas Rungan?
I have Monterrey because of a kid by the name of Jonathan Gonzalez, an 18-year-old American that needs to choose between Mexico, who keeps Molina, a starting player for the Mexican national team, on the bench, holding number 6, played every game. He's been brilliant. Tigres and Monterrey, by the way, in the same city. Unbelievable.
Yeah, will be. First time they've ever faced off in the final of this one.
Okay. And Valencia, that's the call you made.
And Valencia. Okay, top goals up next on the locker room. If you'd have told me Benevento's goalkeeper would make the list before the weekend, I would not have believed it, but he does. Stay with us.
The Locker Room is presented by Ford. Go further.
Welcome back to the locker room. Our top goals are brought to you by Ford, and we'll start at number 5. It's in Liga, and it's against a team that beat PSG for the first time this season, Strasbourg.
Yeah, have a look, a flick on here, and Bahoken gets ahead of Kimpembe, but doesn't he half finish this above the keeper, up towards the top corner. This guy's got pace and ability to run, but I'm wondering, Kimpembe, the centre-half, just letting him go like that? And he pays the price, Kay.
In at number 4, it's Nicolas Pepe from Lille.
Nicolas, absolutely. Look at this for one of the lads from Lille. The Great Danes, they're called. How about this for an absolutely magisterial goal? Swerves it in, picks the top corner out, postage stamp, lovely control here, settles himself, takes a look. Class in a glass.
Vincent Pajot for you, Christian.
Took me 3 hours to choose this goal. The whole afternoon. This is a cracker from 30 meters.
This is a cracker.
Whoa! There's the razzle.
So at the razzle-dazzle. So at the end of the 3 hours, I chose this goal here.
Yeah,
what's his name?
Chosen.
Pajot.
Pajot.
This one's for you, Thomas Malcolm, once again, 20-year-old Brazilian.
I love it. Look at the 20-year-old Brazilian getting inside, left foot,
nice.
into the post. Thanks for coming. He looks like he's 20 as well.
He's a Brazilian called Malcolm?
Malcolm,
He's been brilliant this season. Absolutely worldy, and that's not the first of them. And in at number 1, it had to be Alberto Benevento.
Goalkeeper's rule, Kay.
Goalkeeper's rule. Thank you so much for joining us on the locker room this evening. Did you ever imagine you would see a goalkeeper winning our top goals of the week? Well, we have it all here on the locker room, and we had it all here this weekend on beIN Sports. Stick around with us extra every night, weeknights and weekends, and of course all the live football as well. We'll see you next time.
Bobo, this is my plane. Look. Woo! Oh. That's not true.
The Locker Room is presented by Ford. Go further.